by 12 o'clock. So the issue of infiltration does not come up. We have made arrangements with all our formations all over Nigeria on zonal basis, on command basis. All people that are coming in are going to be monitored. Thank you.
When you say all the people that are coming in, what do you mean? Coming in from where?
What I'm saying is those who have been here as foreign observers are going to be monitored. Those who are coming in from other countries, they cannot be able to come in because all borders have been closed today by 12 o'clock. Until Sunday, 12 o'clock afternoon, the borders will be open.
Now, before this postponement, there have been conversations around the country about the porosity of Nigeria's borders and then concerns about some people that just walk across the border, some of them undocumented. Are there steps in place or measures in place to ensure that some of these people don't come in contact or use PVCs from somewhere or the other to vote?
This is not possible. Before even the elections, 2 months back, there was an assessment of those contiguous zones. And based on this assessment, just last 2 or 3 weeks, the Controller Generals had deployed all the Deputy Controller Generals along our zones. What I mean by along our zones are the country has been zoned, have been put into 4 zones. The Deputy Controller Generals are in charge of those zones. They have been deployed to zone Lagos zone, to Katsina zones, Adamawa zones, and Ibadan zones. They are all in control, and they are supervising the monitoring of people that are coming to Nigeria. Thank you.
I see you were shaking your head when he was talking about the borders as well as you really saying.
Shake my head. Nobody is going to walk into your border today. Anybody that's going to come would have come before now. What immigration need to do, for example, I've said it time and time number, go to so many runabout junctions in Agege, all those areas. You see all those Niger in their hundreds. They are the one riding the bikes. And I'm not going to be surprised that you're going to vote. Are you going to have immigration officers to control them? You see, the point here is previous governments are saying that our borders are porous. And sometimes we have seen a government who said they don't even know the number of what's it called, of the borders that lead to Nigeria. What we're saying here is that it's not to wait to less than many hours before elections, we are closing the border. People that have entered, they have accosted some of these guys, they don't even have a visa. They don't even have any permission to live in the country. So what we're saying here is that tomorrow, for people again who are going to be in who are going to be voting, if you see somebody who you know that is not part of, don't make trouble for security reasons. All you need to do, talk to the right person to say, okay, this person, I'm not sure is a Nigerian or is supposed to vote.
No, but how can a Nigerian? No,
I was even going to ask him to respond.
Yes, I'm at a polling unit and I see, okay, Ijoma, for instance, I feel like she doesn't look like a Nigerian. I feel like Ijoma is a Nigerian. How am I able to verify that Ijoma, first of all, is a Nigerian?
I will have a Nigerian partner.
She could have a PBC.
Okay. Let me share an experience with you. When I was still in the service, when we started the national identity card, I remember that there was a particular person, a Ghanaian, and another person, I think is a Togolese or so, in one of the local governments that registered for the national ID card. In fact, how people discovered was that when the cards came, people were searching, they saw and said, this guy is not a Nigerian. Yeah. So it was the people that alerted us, and then we went to go and we invited him for questioning, and we seized the cards from him and, refer the incident to the appropriate, because that is a crime for you to claim to be a Nigerian when you are not. So the community has that responsibility. They know who is who in the particular community. But however, they say we need to be realistic. This is a problem that we're having. It's a big challenge. And we should not try to make it look like it's good or beautiful. It's a challenge, and it's difficult because, one, we're talking about contiguous nationality here. There are Yorubas across the Nigerian border in Benin Republic. It will be difficult for you to actually know whether this one is a real Nigerian Yorubas or Beninois.
Okay, let Mr. Bello respond because he's still with us. Mr. Bello, what do you do if from what we're hearing from one of our panelists, perhaps they're here already, and what do you do when you see people who are not Nigerian nationals trying to vote, or is that what you're trying to ask? ask, yes?
Yes, especially if they have PVCs.
The issue of identifying who is a Nigerian and who is not a Nigerian is the prerogative power of of immigration officers. Only immigration officers will determine who is a Nigerian. If we have them here, we must have them for a reason. And I assure you that none of them is having a PBC and none of them will be allowed to vote during the election.
If we leave the issue of foreigners now, or possibility of foreigners, and then come to the issue of the voting itself tomorrow, there are those who had raised the issue of, okay, yes, in 2015, people had asked the question, why can't we do simultaneous accreditation and voting? Because this whole idea of being accredited, going home and coming back to vote can be tedious and it can be inconvenient, especially for those who live far. Now INEC has stepped forward and said, well, simultaneous accreditation and voting. And voices are also being raised about that to say, well, then in that case, we won't really know how many people have been accredited until the end of the exercise and is open to manipulation. Is this a question of being between the devil and the deep blue sea, or how do you see it? Dr. Chiari, the question was for Dr. Chiari.
Oh, okay. Personally, I don't share the sentiment that there is any problem with simultaneous accreditation and voting. Rather, I look at it as a very positive development. If you recall, in 2015, a sizable proportion of people who accredited ended up not voting. Sometimes up to 5, 7, or 10%. I think this is a huge loss. And to vote, to accredit and vote and leave, I think helps. It reduces the time for the voting process itself. It is possible actually to conclude voting by 2 o'clock or by 3 at the most. And for polling units where there are over 500 voters, it is also possible to finish not later than 5 o'clock. So personally, I do not think there is any problem with the new guideline about simultaneous accreditation and voting.
About that, because I know that what INEC have done when they change that system, to me personally, is good. Why? In 2015, when we had you accredited and you go back home, those of us who came from very far place, we waited and were in the sun because there's no. Now with this, I think it will be good. But the fact here remains that once you finish accreditation, they take the number down. I mean, as people are being accredited, they are taking the number and you are voting. So I think it's good that it's going side by side, because a lot of people will go home, they will not come back to vote. Seriously.
So what do you
mean?
You mean as you are being accredited, you write the number. As you are voted, you are voting, you write the number.
No, I mean, I'm talking about the INEC officers, so that they can know the number of people who have accredited and who have voted.
But since it's simultaneous.
Yes, simultaneous, yes.
I was going to say, if we could play back that video, the animation video about the process, if you see that in that process, there's no time to do accreditation.
And write number.
And write number. As you're doing your accreditation, you're going immediately to vote, and then you finish and go. But there's a time frame by 2 p.m. But we'll just hold on a moment.
Yeah, let's go to our Niger State correspondent, Emperor Simon. You know, it's election eve, and we're feeling the pulse of the different states. So let's go to Emperor now.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you very much. Here. Hello. Hello.
Can you hear us, Emperor? And if you can, just tell us what's happening around you. If you just listen in, you can hear me. And tell us what's happening around you now, Emperor.
I can hear you. All right, thank you very much. Here what we have is that the Independent National Electoral Commission is putting final thoughts to the preparation so far. At the moment, the commission has met with heads of the security agencies, ensure security of the election. The commission has also met with the heads of the transport workers, the Nigerian National Union of Transport Workers, and also.
Okay, well, we're trying to make out what you're saying. Perhaps we need to come back to you, but I'm sure you're trying to tell us how Mina is getting ready for tomorrow. But before then, let's just carry on what we're saying. NT.
Yeah. Okay, so Richard, there's a time frame, you know, that by 2 p.m. an INEC official or a security man is supposed to be at the end of the line so that the last person before that's. So with that kind of situation, there is nothing. Or so to speak, there's no time to say you're taking number, you're going, you're coming back, you're not going anywhere. So you're getting accreditation, you're voting immediately. How do you you're saying it's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So there will be no problem. So why do you think those who are crying foul are crying out?
Has there been anything that comes up in Nigeria that we don't context? There's nothing. It's a question of just putting this, the right system in place and believing that it's going to work. And
trying to avoid people planning for it not to work.
Just it. Seriously. That just it.
So you're not okay.
I don't have any issue with that. For me personally.
Let me be you, Shay. Those who are crying out as against the issue of simultaneous accreditation and voting, they're saying that. How do you now know the number of people that came into that polling unit? And at the end of the day, you hear an announcement, 200 people vote, 200 votes were cast here.
And 110.
And 110 were accredited. How do you differentiate?
You see, there is no perfect system. So you see, the first thing we need to look at is what are the pros and cons of this new system compared to the old ones. It has its own downside too. And if you look at what happened in Osun State, it was easy for, INEC to take decisions because look at the difference in the election, the votes of the two parties and the total number of people accredited in those centers that were, having issues. And it helps them to be able to come to terms that, okay, we cannot decide now because these numbers are actually above the difference there, so we actually need to. So what pre-voting process like accreditation helps to this to help to determine beforehand how many ballots you should expect in the ballot box. Now, but this new system also has its own good side to it, that people can easily vote and they go about their life. Business. And while others who want to wait can wait. And it also helps to fast track the process, that it's possible for you in a particular center to actually wind up by 2 o'clock.
Manipulated is the question.
Now, see, all the system has room for manipulation. The manipulation here is that, it helps people. Like when I was polling clerk, and I will share my experience with you as a polling officer. You see, the total of people that came to vote were not more than 50, but our polling center had about 500. At the end of the day, the AD and the PDP then, agents there, came to me and said, you know what, we're having about 450 ballot papers left. We want you to share 400 for us, equal, 200, 200. And they were insisting, the two parties, yes, they agreed that shared for us. And I'll tell you the reason why. The reason is this. They want, it's a community agreement. They want to ensure that they want to push it to the state that their community is a high voting community. So that when there are dividends of democracy start coming, their community will be regarded as, this community always turn out 450, 500 voters, not a community that will turn out 50 voters. So you need to understand some other things that surrounds
the election process.
It's not just about who wins now. It's about what comes down to their community.
But is that legal?
So this is what this kind of
arrangement.
The way we should ask him, did you share it?
Did you share?
No, I didn't share.
No, but we're just talking about him.
Yeah.
See, I'm telling you,
Other people in the same situation may reach a different conclusion.
You see, it is a community now coming together to say, okay, we are not going to alter the difference now. If Party A is having 31 and Party B is having 9 votes, we had
200 to what they have. So that gap still remains because it's about their community interest. So this system gives room for this, where you cannot determine beforehand how many people are going to turn out for votes, because they don't have the pre-voting system.
Okay, so in this case now, what happens is whatever vote is cast is weighed against the number of registered voters for that unit. That's what they're going to judge. So if in this particular voting unit you have 300 people registered here, but at the end of the day only 50 votes were cast. So whatever plus or minus is going to be done against the registered voters.
Exactly.
Not accredited voters.
Not accredited voters.
Again, what about manipulation? This cannot be manipulated.
I think the INEC, they have been able to put some measures in place. Because when I listened to Mr. Igini, the rec for Akwa Ibom, I was amazed at the level of security features and arrest process put in place. One is that it's going to give, post-election, litigations, a lot of things to work with, but it's also going to be cumbersome in terms of being able to prove, the legality that must have gone wrong. But at least that's going to give them some level of comfort that if you bring in enough forensic experts into play during, post-election disputes, then you can actually be able to, fish out if those ballot papers were actually completed by the people that are not supposed to be in that polling booth.
Maybe the two of you should weigh in on this, the level of security for those ballot papers. The INEC chairman talked about the fact that there are multiple levels of authentication, that some of them only he knows them. He and this is the polling.
And the person who printed it. No, that was for the secret code, not for all of them.
No, I'm talking about the ballot papers now, because he also said the ballot papers have.
No, he said that there's a secret code that only himself the person who printed knows.
Those kind of, with that level of security for the ballot papers, how would that help?
Okay, so think about it. Let's take a short break. Muse, think about it, and then we'll come back for more.